Sometimes we forget why we're here. It's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up, I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they wanna do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes this day and age is making me feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rapping. I wanna share my emotion because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battle scars are impressions of everything that it is.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Now if I had a voice that reached
Don't look like they're
I tell them there's a reason that we're all created equal. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm given. Won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battle scars on my church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers, these battle scars on my church.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Well, hello everyone, and it looks like I even ended up on screen in the right spot for the first time in a long time. Wow, this is going to be somewhat of a short show. Short show, say that 10 times fast. I did the earlier one on grammar and bylaws, yay. But I realized, as I told you guys a couple weeks ago, that there was just like this little chunk of the LP news for January, February that I skipped. And we don't want to do that now, do we? So I figured I would move this back to me a little bit. We would just catch up on that little bit and close out at least the national LP history. I'd like to do a California specific one since I did start that series. If only the LNC would behave so I wouldn't have to keep talking about them. But an upcoming show is, in fact, I'm just not looking forward to doing it. It's something that needs to be done, but not looking forward to it. And that is going over that stink bomb of an interview that Tara DeSisto did with David Valente. Boy, was that inappropriate. And since our money is paying for that inappropriateness, I need to cover it. And apparently Tara does not like being criticized because, that's one of the things she's complaining about with some Massachusetts members. She can bully them. You can't bully me, sweetheart. I'm going to talk about you as much as I want to. So, before we get started, let me do the typical YouTube things, which hopefully I'm getting better at. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, I never ask you to do that. Please do. I've been slowly gathering subscribers, and I think I'm about 10 away from 3,100. As I said, this is a relatively small channel, but with a very loyal fan base, which I like. The fact that this is really inside LP baseball, I'm really surprised it's grown as much as it has. And we are getting... no, actually, where are we in February? We're not near the end of February. Thank God. I am like so... One day, it'd be interesting just to keep a camera on me for a week, because I think you guys would be astounded at how I never stop. Like, I'm busy from the minute I wake up to the minute I put my head to sleep, and I don't sleep nearly enough. Got a lot of convention planning to do, so even though it's not near the end of February, you could help me meet my February goals early by becoming a patron of the show if you do enjoy this type of very unusual content at patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. I would greatly appreciate it, or pick up some of the merch at tinyurl.com/Pink Flame merch. You're going to want it for Reno, because it offends all the right people. Let's just put it that way. And of course, super chats are always welcome. All super chats up through Reno. Actually, it probably up through the month before, because YouTube's like a month behind in the way it pays its creators. All super, because just so you know, YouTubers know, you get all the super chats get collected and you get one payment a month. And that all goes to my campaign, and it is accounted for in my campaign spreadsheet. So, any donors to my campaign can ask for a copy of the campaign accountability spreadsheet so you can see what I spend my money on and the receipts to back it up, because I always run fully transparent campaigns. Now, all we have left to do to finish this out, I reprinted the whole LP News, because it's weird the way I skipped one thing. Put on my old lady glasses. Well, these aren't old lady glasses. I need glasses because I'm an old lady, but these aren't old lady glasses. Let's put it that way. Okay. We did almost everything except, and it really surprised me, there was a book review in here. And this is on the second to last page. So let me pull up the LP News here. And let me pull this up so we can all be on quite literally the same page. So it's the page before this one. So you see where it says book review. And at first I was like, do I really need to cover just this one column? And then I read it. And I was like, yes, I definitely do. Because if you've been following these historical shows, you know we learned an awful lot about Harry Browne in that Penthouse interview. I believe it was Penthouse. It wasn't the Playboy. Playboy was Ayn Rand. Penthouse was the article Anarchy on the Right. It's on the channel. A very, very interesting article. And it had an interview with Harry Browne way before he was in the LP. Way before he was politically involved. I found it very interesting to learn that Harry Browne was anti-political, because we all know him as one of the best presidential candidates we ever had. And he was our two-time candidate. He was candidate in, hold on, help me out here, 1990, right? Or was it 96? No, 96 and 2000. Wasn't that correct? And then in 96, I think, was when Joe Jorgensen was his running mate. I could be having it slightly incorrect here, because 80 was Clark. 90, was it 99? No. Y'all let me know. I'm pretty sure he was our 2000 candidate and our 1996 candidate. I'm a little brain fried right now. My hair is showing up by getting all frazzled because I've just been doing a ton of work. So I was correct. 96 and 2000. And which of those two, Dave Davis, was Joe Jorgensen his running mate? I believe she was his running mate in 96. Who was his running mate in 2000? Y'all could look that up really easily on Elpedia and help me out here. Alrighty, and Joe Jorgensen, as you all know, was our last presidential candidate. And And for those listening who don't know, Joe is a woman named Joe, J-O, not 1980 was Clark, Berglund was 84, Ron Paul was 88, who was 92, and then 96 was Brown, 2000 was Brown, 2004 was Badnarik, 2008 was Barr, 2012 was Johnson, 2016 was Johnson, and 2020 was Jorgensen. So who was whatever one I just missed there? 92. Maru, that's right, Andre Maru. Okay, and he had Nancy Lord at his running mate. I don't know the running mates as well as I know the top of the ticket. Okay, so book review. This is a book review of Harry Brown's book, How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World, which ended up being a very popular book amongst libertarians. And if you looked at the cover image I had for this show, I'm actually going to stick that probably up on LPDA. I got to check the copyrights on it, though. From what I can tell, and maybe this is a monument somewhere else, but it looks like it's in a graveyard. I think this is the monument over Harry Brown's grave, which is a lectern with a stone copy of How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World. Art Oliver in 2000. That name doesn't even ring a bell. That is weird. Huh. Interesting. I'll have to learn more about Art Oliver, which I'm sure we will learn if we keep going with this history here. So this book review, though, of Harry Brown, at least when I skimmed it, isn't all that favorable, considering what a blooming figure Harry Brown ended up being in the political movement. But it's not surprising, considering he was actively anti-political. And How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World. You know, you have these people today. Now, they're super obnoxious. I don't really care for them. I mean, some of them I know and they're okay. But in general, they tend to be quite obnoxious. And they call themselves post-libertarians. And they think political action... And a lot of them aren't even libertarians at all anymore of any sort. They're monarchists or whatever, like that Mr. King Pill guy, who I don't hear too much of. It seems like he was a little bit of a flash in the pan. Harry Brown is the OG post-libertarian before he was libertarian. See, he went post-libertarian before he even went libertarian. Like, he was ahead of the curve, because he was arguing pretty much the same thing, and how to find freedom in an unfree world where people like Jason Stapleton, they all think they have this bright idea like they were the ones to come up with it. No, Harry Brown was preaching this first, and that was try to disentangle yourself from the state as much as you can. Just get the state to leave you alone, become wealthy enough that you could flee the government if you had to, that sort of thing. And that's what the post-libertarians are preaching now. So, book review. Is Harry Brown B.F. Skinner in disguise? Is the subtitle here. So, as you can see, they're going to start out very critical. And this Bill Westmiller, interestingly, like, I really am having brain fog tonight. I think Bill sent me a bunch of old LP stuff. A bunch of Clark campaign stuff. Is Bill... Hold on. I could be wrong. Is he in Massachusetts? If he is, I think I got some stuff from him. But Bill Westmiller is a well-known name in the party. So I didn't realize that he went back to 1974. So it starts out, living your life as you want to live it, in quotes, page 5, which I guess is page 5 of How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World, might be a formula for independence or integrity, but it is hardly a definition of freedom. I disagree with that sentence. How is that not a definition of freedom? I mean, I wouldn't say it's a full definition, because you could live your life how you want to live it and aggress against other people, but that certainly isn't what Harry Brown was advocating. So I don't understand the nit he's picking with that sentence. I think that sentence is a perfectly fine expression of freedom. We'll see. Maybe he'll explain this later on, because again, I just skimmed this interview. In his latest book, How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World, Harry Brown takes those two virtues beyond freedom and dignity and morality. Ah, is he going to accuse Harry Brown of being immoral? A reader, whoa, I'm not liking this review, but it's part of history. I wonder if Harry Brown ever read this review. Wonder if he ever forgave Bill Westmiller for it. It says a reader might charge Brown with fraud, for he barely touches on freedom, i.e., the absence of coercion or restraint. Now, I've never read How to Find Freedom in an Unfree World, so maybe he ignores the idea of coercion and instead discusses an assortment of quote-unquote traps, which means something different today than it meant back then, I'm sure. Because that word, if you don't know, is a derogatory term that we're just not going to talk about because it's considered a very derogatory term nowadays, which he and he's not talking about the same thing. I just found it funny that how words change, which he conclusively admits are paper chains, and the individual who sees them for what they are will know that it was his choice to be enslaved. Now, I disagree there. I absolutely disagree there. We don't choose to be born into a world of coercion. We can do the best we can with the situation we find ourselves in. Most of the traps are unchecked premises which lead to altruism, dependence, dishonesty, and repression. So it seems like he, in this book, shares Ayn Rand's distaste for altruism, which I do not share. That is something I object to greatly, this demonization of altruism, though I know they defined it differently than most people do. But I think when you have to redefine words, you're not being a good communicator. All of which seem to be aimed at someone who isn't a libertarian. Well, maybe his book was geared towards those who aren't libertarians, because libertarians maybe already know how to find freedom in an unfree world. However, Brown does address himself to libertarians and implicitly the Libertarian Party in the chapter entitled Freedom from Government. Now I'm going to have to get this book. I didn't even realize he dealt with the LP in this book. We're going to have to do this as a bonus, I think, on my Patreon only. A Paradigm of Amorality. Wow. I might not like this book. It says, it is ineffectual to insist upon moral conduct. I couldn't disagree more. But of course, I am a hard deontologist, so that's not surprising. And resignation. You can't change the fate of a nation. So he was black-pilled at that time, apparently. Leads Brown to conclude that it's a waste of time to oppose government enslavement. Its employees are simply doing what each thinks best for himself. It is simply their misguided way of seeking happiness. Now, I get in arguments with fellow anarchists on this a lot. I can possibly even agree that there is a good chance, I'm not going to say it's a certainty, because I'm not black-pilled, but I would say it's a good chance that we'll never change the fate of this nation. But in trying to change the fate of the nation, we might help change the fate of individuals within the nation. And politics gives you an entree into people's minds and living rooms and just other avenues of speaking that they might not be reached any other way. And if that's all it does, it's worth it. I do think we can do more, but even if that was all it does, it's worth it. Brown assumes that any opposition to injustice requires each individual to deal with 1,000,000 issues and burden himself with a responsibility to right the world's wrongs. I feel that one. I'm going to go off on a little tangent here. I was watching some Jordan Peterson earlier, and I know it's very in vogue to hate Jordan Peterson. I don't hate Jordan Peterson. I enjoy his work. But my husband had never listened to it before, so he put on a video of a lecture on 12 Rules for Life, and we sat and watched some of it together. And I hadn't seen this particular lecture, and there was something he said that just, man, it got me. I think I'm going to be paraphrasing probably badly, and I think he was quoting Carl Jung when he said, like, it was a noble thing to pursue something meaningful as part of your life goal. But when you pursue that which is meaningful, you're going to experience and find things you wish you never hadn't, or something along the lines, or that will be deeply unpleasant. And that got me. I've been waxing very philosophical this year because, I'm looking back on a lot of what happened to me the past year. And of course, not everything I did was perfect. And I think Jordan would approve of me doing self-reflection. But I believe what I did was meaningful. And boy, did it lead to some consequences I didn't like or want or ever wish to experience. So that stabbed me a bit in the heart earlier today, but perhaps that is part and parcel of a meaningful life. Like I've said before, I don't think you can say you have integrity, you can believe you have integrity, but until exercising your integrity actually costs you dearly, you don't know you have integrity. And the gift that the corrupt LNC gave me last year was the knowledge that I have integrity. Okay, let's continue. Because I could have groveled and kept my position, which meant a great deal to me. But I wouldn't do it. He resigns himself to the observation that a simple statement of truth will not be sufficient to make other people change their ways. That is untrue. It might not be enough to make a lot of people change their ways. But my life was turned upside down in the course of 15 minutes on a lunch break on September 17th, 2014, or is it September 19th? I believe it's September 17th, 2014, lunch break. 15 minutes, my world was turned absolutely upside down by going to lp.org, reading the Statement of Principles and the Preamble to the platform. Changed my life. And that is just a simple, those were just simple statements of truth. In fact, I think the Preamble to the platform of the LP is a work of poetry. It makes my heart sing. Maybe we'll read it at the end here. And opts for retreatism. In Canada, you don't have to worry about U.S. laws. Canada must have been a lot freer back in 1974 than it is now. The greatest fault in How I Found Freedom is the contention that moral claims, quote unquote, close paren, rights, are not universally valid. Oh, I do not agree there. Rights are universally valid. So I guess Harry Brown was not a deontologist. The consequence is a consent to the violation, particularly if the violation is by an accepted agent of coercion. Brown does not value liberty nor political freedom. The sole redeeming factor in the book is that Brown doesn't confine himself to discussing his philosophical skepticism. The latter chapters of the book contain a variety of interesting procedures for developing the virtues of independence and integrity. Though these techniques are worthy of consideration, the reader should not expect to find freedom in the $7.95 guide. I bet you it's a lot more today. The price of liberty is higher than that, but not nearly so high as Brown imagines. I'm wondering if this is a fair critique. Has anyone read this book? I'm wondering if it's on Audible, because I've been looking for a way to use my Audible credits. And I wonder if this is fair, if Brown changed his mind, because I know he was a wildly popular LP candidate, and I can't imagine a candidate saying that rights are not universal would be a wildly popular LP candidate. Because the whole premise of the LP is that all men are born with certain inherent rights. The LP, to me, is the more fuller expression of the Declaration of Independence. So that's kind of disturbing to me. But before, so that was all we missed. But I would like to, before we go, since I brought it up, where I'm going to disagree, because you never know who is going to be watching this show at some point in the future. And there could be a me watching this show who will hear the same words that changed my life, and it may change theirs. And it was basically the preamble to the LP platform. So we're going to close with the preamble, because these really spoke to me. And some people might think this is stupid. Some people have words speak to them in all different kinds of ways, but the written word, I think, is very, very powerful. So the preamble says, as libertarians, we seek a world of liberty, a world in which all individuals are sovereign over their own lives and are not forced to sacrifice their values for the benefit of others. We believe that respect for individual rights is the essential precondition for a free and prosperous world, that force and fraud must be banished from human relationships, and that only through freedom can peace and prosperity be realized. Consequently, we defend each person's right to engage in any activity that is peaceful and honest, and welcome the diversity that freedom brings. The world we seek to build is one where individuals are free to follow their own dreams in their own ways without interference from government or any authoritarian power. And it goes on to talk about the platform that follows. It says in the following pages, because this used to be printed in a booklet, we set forth our basic principles and enumerate various policy strands derived from these principles. These specific policies are not our goal, however. Our goal is nothing more nor less than a world set free in our lifetime, and it is to this end that we take these stands. And to me, that is just absolutely beautiful. And I've done so much exposition of just these four, is it 4, 1, 2, well, one of them's just one sentence, but it's a one sentence paragraph, 1, 2, 5 paragraphs. For instance, the idea that respect for individual rights is an essential precondition. I don't think enough people pay attention to that. A lot of people think that all we need to do is respect individual rights and all of a sudden utopia will be established. That is not true. Libertarian dystopia is possible, as I've said multiple times. Liberty is an essential but not sufficient condition for human prospering, which is why I react so violently against condemnations of altruism. I would not want to live in a world without altruism. You can have a world in which everyone is perfectly free and perfectly selfish, and that is not a world I would want to live in. Also, something that's very interesting here is the welcoming of diversity. The Libertarian Party seems to have forgotten that, because all we see now is these internecine wars between different flavors of libertarianism without realizing that we're supposed to be welcoming the diversity that freedom brings. And also, one third thing here that I think people forget, and the meme summary of this that I think people forget is like when Facebook or Twitter censors people and you get the "but it's a private company" argument. Yes, is it truly though? I don't think there's not many companies in today's unfree world that are truly private, but certainly companies like Facebook and Twitter are one of the least genuinely private properties. They are so in bed with the government, it's not even funny. So notice that the sentence in the preamble says, the world we seek to build is one where individuals are free to follow their own dreams in their own ways without interference from government or any authoritarian power. Authoritarian powers are not just governments. Corporations can be authoritarian powers. And I think we forget that sometimes as libertarians. All right, guys, that's really all I have for tonight. I'm going to go back to convention planning. I was just creating the application for vote tellers. If you're in Colorado and you would like to be a vote teller at the convention on March 12th. I would love to have you assist the harried secretary, which is me. It's ideal if you're not running for any of the positions that we'll be doing vote telling for, but if you are, I can assign you to count different votes or pair you with somebody who is not running so that there won't be any appearance of a conflict of interest or an actual conflict of interest. Okay, everyone, tomorrow I'm not sure what I'm going to be covering because I have 2 meetings. I've got a convention committee meeting and a style committee meeting. So maybe there won't be a show, or maybe we'll do the California history one, because the history ones don't take much out of me. They're sheer enjoyment. The ones about the current dysfunction of the Libertarian Party just kill a little bit of my soul each time. And I feel like I've only got about a third of a soul left. Maybe it's from hanging around that ginger Michael Heiss. I might think it's the drama that's eating my soul, but now I'm beginning to think it might be the ginger. Can never trust a ginger, especially a ginger libertarian messiah. Inside joke, people. And somebody did take my cover picture of Facebook seriously. I knew some humorless sourpuss libertarian, and there is nothing worse than a humorless sourpuss libertarian would take it seriously. But have a good night, everyone, and I will talk to you soon. And find freedom in this unfree world. Mi guapas de libertad.
Given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business.